Okay, here you go. Okay, so I think you're doing it. Okay?
Okay.
And, you know, I want you to get the people around the table. And, John, why don't you start with me? Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, I don't know if there's anybody in Detroit or around the world who's looking at this. This is our first time trying to upload a little video of our morning devotions. We're here in Coconut Grove Beach Hotel, outside of Accra, a couple hours outside of Accra, in an area called Cape Coast. This is one of the areas where there were slave castles. We visited a slave castle the other day at Cape Coast. That would have been, Friday? Saturday, all of us went to visit all of us visited the slave castle at Cape Coast Saturday. Yesterday, which was Sunday, I preached in Accra. Jonathan Garrows is the person who is actually videoing this, and Jonathan made a video of the worship service yesterday in Accra. Part of our group went to the Elmina slave castle yesterday. Today, the people who went to worship with me at Cape Coast, in Accra yesterday, are going to go to the Elmina today. So we're trying this, and I want you to see what we've been doing, which is basically I take a Bible verse each morning for whoever shows up. This is the breakfast time. It's 7 in the morning here. I realize it's 2 in the morning back in Detroit. So I appreciate those of you who've gotten up to see this. And if you haven't, maybe you'll record it. And I think we're going to try to, I don't know if we can save it in any way, but we're going to try to do that. And so, John, I want you to just move around, if you will, and pick up the, just keep it on, okay?
Okay.
And be sure to get everybody's face who's here. Greg, yes, and Willie, let me say that we're doing something a little different today. We're trying a video streaming service called Ustream. And Brother John is, he's doing the honors. He's holding the video camera and focusing in on everybody. And so I don't know how this is going to go, but we put the word out to people back in Detroit that at 2 in the morning.
Ready last night.
You saw that?
Yeah. After getting up, I'm flipping around, woke up 4 o'clock, sort of turned my laptop that way. I got a second.
In your room?
In my room.
You weren't getting?
No. Then all of a sudden it materialized, and I read.
At 2 o'clock in the morning?
About 3 something.
Well, you know, today's when the young people are here.
Yes. I know.
That's what I think. I think that when all the young college students were here, they may have been on Wi-Fi. Yeah. But say something for the people back home. Everybody, Madonna?
Hello, everyone back home. I'm sorry, Tom.
Go ahead. Well, say who you are and say what you've been experiencing here.
I'm Denise, and right now I'm experiencing the Atlantic coast called the Gold Coast in Ghana.
Hi, this is Gregory Whiting. This is a wonderful experience being back in the motherland and meeting young black men and women who are doing something with themselves. It's great. That's all I can say right now.
Good morning, America. I just want to say this is my second trip to Ghana, but this is more rewarding because it's more in depth. And being black and beautiful in the motherland, just a great, intense, in-depth experience, especially witness others who, this is their first time in the motherland. So it's just been really a great experience. Thank you for viewing this video.
Say something, Madonna.
Good morning. I'm Madonna Rose. And for me, this has been a phenomenal experience. I feel the energy. There's a spirituality that I feel about being here. And I believe God put me here at this time for a reason. I'm meant to be here now, today, and not any sooner. And I most certainly feel blessed. Thank you.
All right, John, I'm going to read the Bible verse. And for those of you who are back in the States who are looking at this, the text that we're looking at today is Psalm 137. I've chosen this text because our group has been visiting slave castles. We've been to the Cape Coast Slave Castle. Some have been to the Elmina Slave Castle. These are very big forts that first were built by the Portuguese. Was Elmina built by the Portuguese first? But I know that Cape Coast was built by Portuguese, and then several years later, the Dutch came. They fought among themselves to see who would be the ones to occupy these slave castles. But I was just thinking, from the perspective of a slave, how must they have felt? And in the Bible, you can find Bible verses that relate to every aspect of life. And in this instance, when we think about from the perspective of a slave who was at a place like Cape Coast or Elmina, when you perhaps walk hundreds of miles in chains and shackles because you're captured by a warring African rival, and so now you're chained. Maybe you're separated from your wife or your husband, your children, and you walk these hundreds of miles in chains, and then you finally get to this beautiful coastline, and you're put in a castle, or we're calling it a castle, but really they're forts. You're put in a fort, in a dungeon. We had an opportunity to look at the dungeons. There's, virtually no way out of them. And when I think about the people of Israel, there was a time in their lives when they went through Babylonian captivity. I think this was about 400 years before Christ. And the way the Babylonian captivity worked, you had Babylon was the ruling force of the day, and they conquered Jerusalem. And when they conquered Jerusalem, they looked for the people who had skills. And so the Babylonian exile was kind of like the slave trade, in that what we were told here was that at the Cape Coast port, slave port, what we were told was that the kind of slaves that they really wanted, that the Portuguese and then the Dutch wanted, and then the British, was they wanted big slaves. They wanted slaves who were strong. They didn't want slaves who looked like they were weak. And so right there's a separation. If you were stronger, you were picked. If you were weaker, maybe you were left behind. And in the Babylonian exile, it was the same thing. The people who were the artisans were the people who were picked. So, for instance, the carpenters, the school teachers, the mathematicians, the people who had a skill, those were the ones that Babylon wanted. If you didn't have a skill, they didn't want you. And so the unskilled were left behind in Jerusalem, the weak, the infirmed, and so forth. The more skilled were taken away to Babylon. And so Psalm 137 is written at a time when the people of Israel are in Babylon. From their perspective, they're thinking about Jerusalem. And they're thinking about not just Jerusalem as the city, but they're thinking about their families. They're thinking about the old grandfather, grandmother who were not picked to go to Babylon because they weren't skilled. They're thinking about the sister or the brother who maybe wasn't that bright or didn't have, maybe they're bright, but they just didn't have the skill. And so the Babylonians didn't want them. So you have the people in Babylon who are thinking back now to the people in Jerusalem. And they had this most touching set of words that are uttered. Probably when they were first uttered, it was a song, Psalm 137. And it reads, "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and we wept when we remembered Zion." Now see, we're not by the rivers of Babylon, but we're by, once you show them the ocean, John, we're by the Atlantic Ocean. By the Atlantic Ocean, there we sat and wept as we remembered Zion. And many of us in our group have been weeping. We've been weeping because we think about slavery. We think about how our own family life has been so impacted by this. And listen to what they say here. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows there we hung up our lyres, for there our captors asked us for songs, and our tormentors asked for mirth, saying, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." And then, listen to what he says. How could we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand wither, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. And so that's where I want to start our little roundtable discussion this morning. We've been joined by Deirdre Weir.
Live stream.
This is your live streaming back to Detroit. And Cherry Page.
Live stream.
Bennett. Her name's Bennett, and I'm not in it.
Can you switch your live stream? Because I can hold it for him.
Yeah. Turn it. You have to hold it for him. He wants to put you on there, Jonathan. We want to make sure everybody can see Jonathan is on the case too. Our cameraman. Yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
There you go.
And I want to.
Camera's being held by Gregory Whiting.
And you're going to give your reflections, Jonathan?
My reflection?
Yeah, tell them about your trip.
Man, about the trip is the best, amazing trip I ever had. I want to say thank you to the Reverend for leading us through here.
You're welcome.
And the came a few walks, we all survived. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
We're doing a live stream.
Hey, Miss Cook.
Yes.
She can
Come
sit.
on,
She can
pull
over
a chair up. Pull up next to Terry.
Yeah.
While she's pulling up, I'd
Okay,
like for you
so
guys
now,
to see this.
let me-
See this sunrise.
Yeah. Okay, Greg. Now, keep it on, people, or I don't know if you want to switch it back to Jonathan. But, folks, this is the question. I raised, I started with the Bible verse from Psalm 137. I thought it was an appropriate verse because the people of Israel are saying they are by the rivers of Babylon, which presumably are beautiful, were beautiful during their time, but they couldn't go home. Just like we're at the Atlantic Ocean, you think of our forefathers and our foremothers who had this beautiful ocean. Think about how beautiful it is today with all the pollution that we have here. But think about how much more beautiful it must have been 400 years ago, during slavery. And the irony is, you're in this beautiful setting, but you can't go home. And you're chained, you're shackled. And like the people of Israel, I imagine that some of our people said, by the rivers, by the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, there we sat and wept as we remembered Zion. How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Because I'm just curious, all of us have been to at least one of the slave courts. Just put your impression in, and how would you put yourself in the mindset of a slave and one who's, being chained and getting ready to be sent to America or to the Caribbean? Could you relate to something like this text where you say, I have nothing to sing about? I can't sing in joy because my life is not joyful. I can't pretend to be happy when I'm really sad. And can anybody here relate to that? I mean, yes.
I have 6 children, and I just thought that would be just nothing short of catastrophic to think about it. You taking me away from my babies, I will never see my children again. I don't even know, they don't know if I'm living, they don't know if I'm dead. Thought of it makes you just shut up. Just the thought of what was done.
Imagine your 6 children, Madonna Rose, being shackled. You being left behind because, you weren't strong enough. You didn't fit the prototype because of your age as a mother. But your children are taken, and not only are they taken away, but they're destined for different places. One's going to Jamaica, one's going to America. We learned the other night in the swimming pool there was an Indonesian slave trade from here. Isn't that what the lady told me? I need to look that up. But can you imagine that? You know, that not only are they enslaved, but they're not going to be together.
And then the language. You look at the languages we're all different. So communication is broken. You can't even communicate with some of the people that are next to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, devastating.
Other thoughts?
I think that experience that you're in the process of dying.
The what?
You're actually dying.
You're dying.
Because, you know, those who survive that get to be reborn again in a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
And adapt to a whole different world, environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay.
It never got better.
Right, it's not
Never
right.
got better. In their lifetime.
In their
It never got
lifetime,
better.
and their maybe children's
Children's
lifetime. You know, how many generations did we go through
Right, before it ended.
and here we are today. You know, coming back, you know, to the birth of that whole terrible situation.
Other thoughts?
I think like a young child who is to be separated from the mother and father both at the same time is hard and hard to deal with. I have a friend who's both parents died together, and for 2 years now we've been trying to help her to show her that God works things out for your better. So she's devastated. She was. She's better now. So I think something like that will really devastate you. You don't want to be bothered with anybody else. You just want to be left alone. So why did God do this?
Any other thoughts that anybody would like to share?
I felt like it was dark. I thought it was ugly, very gloomy. But I also felt like he had survived. When we were back here, we were the survivors of that. I'm not sure if I can explain exactly what he meant, but I did feel like a survivor, and that I was kind of ancestral, that I am one of the people who's come back to say that we've made it. I mean, that it was a horrible thing, but I did feel like we had survived as black people.
You kind of wonder, after having heard the whole talk at the Gold Council, if it was accurate that they took out people who were more inclined to cause, rebellion among people